is a major economic driver and engine for the St. Anne and the Jamaican economy. The company is one of the single largest foreign exchange earners in the country and contributes $84 million to the local economy. That's US dollars. This is spent as salaries and wages, contractor services, and procurement of local supplies. There's also a recurrent spend of about $300 US dollars annually for various community PR projects in the many communities across our mining lease. Very importantly, the company is among the single largest employer in the parish of St. Anne and employs over 1,000 persons directly. It also provides employment on a part-time or rotating basis for another 2,000 to 3,000 persons. I would like to thank you for your kind attention and for this opportunity to present a brief synopsis and introduction of Noranda Jamaica Bauxite Partners, our Jamaican partner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dell. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, as previously indicated, this is a subsequent meeting with a primary purpose to outline the changes to the original proposal, which was presented at the December 8, 2020 meeting. Now, these changes, as well as major issues and concerns that were raised arising from that meeting and how they were addressed by the consultant, will now be presented. And our presenter this evening is Dr. Conrad Douglas, the Executive Chairman and Principal Consultant of Conrad Douglas Associates Limited, the pioneering multidisciplinary environmental management consultancy firm in Jamaica and the English-speaking Caribbean, which has over 36 years of experience in environmental impact assessment, project planning, sustainable development, project management, engineering, and environmental management. It gives me great pleasure now to introduce you to Dr. Conrad Douglas. Dr. Douglas?
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Noranda Jamaica Bauxite Partners II and Conrad Douglas Associates Limited, I take great pleasure in welcoming you to this second public mandatory meeting. As been previously mentioned, this is mandated by the National Environment and Planning Agency, and its focus is on the modifications or amendment to SML 173 through the removal of what is known as a clawback area. It is located in the parishes of St. Anne and Trelawny, and the proponent for implementing the project that has made the application to Nepal is Noranda Jamaica Bauxite Partners II. Now, in making this presentation, I will focus on 6 basic aspects. Firstly, a very brief introduction. Secondly, a description of the project as it was originally proposed. Thirdly, changes to the originally proposed project. Fourthly, details of the impacts identified based on the modification of the boundary to accept the alternative proposal. Fifthly, description of the proposed mitigation measures which will be carried out during the course of implementation of the project should an environmental permit be granted by the National Environment and Planning Agency. And finally, responses to issues raised by the public following the first mandatory public consultation meeting, which was held on the 8th of December during 2020. Now, by way of reminder, I would just like us to get our bearings once more as to where this SML 173 is located. The map which is shown on the screen, and for those of us who are on radio and cannot see, it is located in the parishes of St. Anne and Trelawny, and in proximity to it is the designated cockpit country protected area. There is also an inset on the map, which shows some more details as to its relationship with other SMLs in the area, such as SML 172, SML 173, and SML 165. Now, this special mining lease, SML 173, is adjacent to the east of the area designated as the Cockpit Country Protected Area. This is an extremely special area, and you may recall that the Most Honorable Prime Minister, Andrew Holness, in November of 2017, made a presentation in Parliament in which he designated this area. Now, the area, as previously stated, comprising part of Western St. Ann and Eastern Trelawny. The area designated as the Cockpit Country was stated in a presentation in Parliament by the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, our Prime Minister. And this is detailed in a report which is given in an appendix of the EIA report itself. The designated Cockpit Country Protected Area, it covers the areas in southern Trelawny, southeast St. James, northwest St. Elizabeth, and northern Manchester. It comprises private and government-owned lands, of which approximately 70% is titled, and the untitled lands are privately owned. Noranda holds some 55% of the mining rights of the total land areas for and behalf of the Commissioner of Lands, and the remainder is privately owned. This is illustrated again in the EIA report and several other documents which have been placed in the public domain and have remained so since December 8, 2020. Now, the description of the originally proposed project involved the proposed mining activities being undertaken in 5-year cycles for a period of 25 years based on approved 5-year mining plans. The project will provide bauxite feedstock to sustain Noranda's operations for the export market. The ore bodies and haul roads comprises 15% or 1,250 hectares of 8,335 hectares of the original SML 173 area. Noranda's operations do not, and I stress, do not involve the processing of bauxite to alumina, nor the use of caustic soda. The rate of dry bauxite production may be as high as 6 million dry metric tons per year. This has the potential to earn about 150 million United States dollars per year for Jamaica, and this is a major and critically important contribution to the Jamaican economy. Noranda's operation provides about 400 direct jobs, 400 indirect contractor jobs, 2,500 indirect opportunities through contractor services and temporary jobs for a total of some 3,300 jobs. There will be increased opportunities for residents in the surrounding community as the mining operations progress. Now, the focus of this presentation is the modification to SML 173 as was originally proposed in December 8, 2020, when the first mandatory public meeting was done. And so I read, the project comprises the alternative proposal, modified SML 173, which removes the clawback area, which was assessed and evaluated in section 10.4 of the EIA report and presented in the first mandatory public meeting on December 8, 2020 as the preferred alternative. Let me stress that. Now, what are these changes, and I'll go from the original to the proposed changes. Originally, the area consisted of some 8,335 hectares. It has now been reduced to 6,226 hectares, a reduction of some 25%, or 2,109 hectares have been removed. Of this new 6,226 hectares, only 18% of this modified SML 173 will be mined, and it does not contain any forested area or forested cover. Let me just simply stress that, because we may wish to discuss it as we proceed further. Exclusions. All the forest reserves within SML 173 are prohibited from mining by law. And this was previously stated, and the appendices to the EIA report contain the gazetted information which was carried out from the late 1950s through to the early 1960s, and clearly documents and states no mining in these areas. It is completely prohibited. So, all forest reserves within SML 173 will be excluded from mining, as was originally stated, and a section of the original SML 173 located in the northwestern area, in addition to the forest, has been excluded from the modified SML 173 area. This area is the area in which intensive agricultural activity takes place. And so there will be no mining of bauxite in the town of Sawyers nor in Level Bottom whatsoever. And these have been gazetted in the EIA. These have been placed in gazettes from the gazettes in the EIA report. There are several maps which illustrate clearly what we're talking about. But I'll show this one just so that we can all see it together. And this is showing SML 173 as it is now presently modified. And ladies and gentlemen, what it shows is the clawback area, which is where we find the intensive agriculture and where we find Sawyers as well as Level Bottom, those townships being located. And also the forested areas. Those have been completely removed in this alternative, which is the preferred alternative, and the area remaining for mining is also now illustrated. So I will repeat, 25% of the original 173 area has been removed or clawed back. No forestry reserves will be mined at all. And only 18% of the modified SML 173 is to be mined, and this does not contain forest. It is covered mainly by grassland. And so what are some of the features or characteristics of this clawback area? These are that it hosts the largest declared forest reserves, which will not be mined. It is covered by grass in the low-lying depressions, which bears bauxite and is not forested, and this bauxite reserve will not be mined. Bauxite deposits in depressions are also located between hillocks, and this will not be mined. There are human settlements with residents made of reinforced concrete and modern materials. The area is relatively underdeveloped and sparsely populated. However, it contains some modern physical infrastructure, such as roadways. There are some mixed settlements, intensive agriculture, and grasslands on variable terrain. Several hillsides have been cleared to facilitate agricultural activities and for obtaining yam sticks. We now move to the identified impacts based on the changes of SML 173. And let us look at the potential impacts on the communities. In respect of the original SML 173, communities located northwest within SML 173 could have been impacted had the mining progressed in that area. Now that the clawback area has been introduced and modified in the SML 173, the likelihood that there will be any impact on communities located to the northwest within SML 173 will be minimal to non-existent. Potential impacts on agriculture. In the original SML 173, the livelihoods of yam and other farmers located to the northwest within SML 173 could have been impacted if mining were to take place in that area. However, with the modification of SML 173 and removal of the clawback area, the likelihood that there will be any impact on the livelihoods of yam and other farmers located in the northwest areas will be minimal to non-existent. So, let's take a look at the proposed mitigation measures. The entire clawback area is a major mitigation decision and action in itself because it excludes mining in those areas of intensive agriculture and, of course, the forested area.
Dr. Douglas, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we have a little technical problem that we'd like to sort out. We are sorry if you're experiencing this problem along with us. We will be continuing with Dr. Douglas's presentation as soon as we have that sorted out. Thank you for joining, and we are looking forward to your questions and comments. We'll be right back.
for the sub. JNN and Power 106 now presents a live broadcast from Conrad Douglas and Associates Limited Public Town Hall for the subsequent second mandatory public meeting on the final environmental impact assessment for the proposed bauxite mining operations by Noranda Jamaica Bauxite Partners 2 in the Special Mining Lease 173 SML 173 area located in the parishes of St. Anne and Trelawny. JNN and Power 106 now presents a live broadcast from Conrad Douglas and Associates Limited Public Town Hall for the subsequent second mandatory public meeting on the final environmental impact assessment for the proposed bauxite mining operations by Noranda Jamaica Bauxite Partners 2 in the Special Mining Lease 173 SML 173 area located in the parishes of St. Anne and Trelawny. JNN and Power 106 now presents a live broadcast from Conrad Douglas and Associates Limited Public Town Hall for the subsequent second mandatory public meeting on the final environmental impact assessment for the proposed bauxite mining operations by Noranda Jamaica Bauxite Partners 2 in the Special Mining Lease 173 SML 173 area located in the parishes of St. Anne and Trelawny. JNN and Power 106 now presents a live broadcast from Conrad Douglas and Associates Limited Public Town Hall for the subsequent second mandatory public meeting on the final environmental impact assessment for the proposed bauxite mining operations by Noranda Jamaica Bauxite Partners 2 in the Special Mining Lease 173 SML 173 area located in the parishes of St. Anne and Trelawny. JNN and Power 106 now presents a live broadcast from Conrad Douglas and Associates Limited Public Town Hall for the subsequent second mandatory public meeting on the final environmental impact assessment for the proposed bauxite mining operations by Noranda Jamaica Bauxite Partners 2 in the Special Mining Lease 173 SML 173 area located in the parishes of St. Anne and Trelawny. JNN and Power 106 now presents a live broadcast from Conrad Douglas and Associates Limited Public Town Hall for the subsequent second mandatory public meeting on the final environmental impact assessment for the proposed bauxite mining operations by Noranda Jamaica Bauxite Partners 2 in the Special Mining Lease 173 SML 173 area located in the parishes of St. Anne and Trelawny. JNN and Power 106 now presents a live broadcast from Conrad Douglas and Associates Limited Public Town Hall for the subsequent second mandatory public meeting on the final environmental impact assessment for the proposed bauxite mining operations by Noranda Jamaica Bauxite Partners 2 in the Special Mining Lease 173 SML 173 area located in the parishes of St. Anne and Trelawny. JNN and Power 106 now presents a live broadcast from Conrad Douglas and Associates Limited Public Town Hall for the subsequent second mandatory public meeting on the final environmental impact assessment for the proposed bauxite mining operations by Noranda Jamaica Bauxite Partners 2 in the Special Mining Lease 173 SML 173 area located in the parishes of St. Anne and Trelawny. JNN and Power 106 now
Well, by now you recognize that we are having some challenges, and we apologize for any lewdness that you may have experienced on the Zoom platform. We are trying to rectify that at the moment. We sincerely apologize. This is a meeting that is so important, the subsequent meeting with a primary purpose to outline the changes to the original proposal, which had been presented on the 8th of December 2020. We'll be coming back to you, hopefully sorted out for the continuation of Dr. Conrad Douglas' presentation, or we may have to take it from the beginning, and of course, your questions and comments. To those persons who are on location, we specially apologize to you because you had to leave your yard and go to this place. And for those persons who are waiting on WhatsApp and to call in on the landline, etc., we apologize to everyone. As soon as it is sorted out, we'll be back with you. Thank you so much for staying with us and for understanding. Again, we apologize, but Dr. Conrad Douglas is here. We're going to start his presentation from the very top, so you won't miss anything. It's been rectified. Dr. Douglas.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Noranda Bauxite Jamaica Partners 2 and Conrad Douglas Associates Limited, I take special pleasure in welcoming you to this second mandatory public meeting. This meeting, as is shown on the screen, is concerned with the proposed mining of bauxite in a modified or special mining lease area, SML 173, which involves the removal of a clawed-back area. The area, or SML 173, is located in St. Ann and Trelawny, and the proponent is Noranda Jamaica Bauxite Partners 2. In making the presentation, I will be doing a very brief introduction. Then I'll move to the description of the project as was originally proposed, changes to the originally proposed project, details of the impacts identified based on the modification of the boundary to accept the alternative proposal, a description of the proposed mitigation measures, and finally, responses to issues raised by the public following the first mandatory public consultation meeting, which was held on the 8th of December last year, 2020. Now, just as a refresher reminder, the project is located on the northern coast of Jamaica and it straddles the parishes of Trelawny and St. Ann. That is SML 173. It is located adjacent to the designated Cockpit Country Protected Area, or CCPA. Let me give you some of the features. The Special Mining Lease SML 173 is adjacent to the east of the area designated as the Cockpit Country Protected Area, or CCPA. The SML 173 area comprises sections of Western St. Ann and Eastern Trelawny. The CCPA areas designated as the Cockpit Country and the Cockpit Country Protected Area by the Most Honorable Prime Minister Andrew Holness in Parliament on November 21st, 2017, and this is recorded in detail in the EIA report, which was submitted in December of 2020, and which was again presented in the public domain with a number of accompanying documents recently in several locations and on NEPA's websites and the website of Conrad Douglas Associates Limited. The designated Cockpit Country Protected Area consists of sections of southern Trelawny, southeast St. James, northern St. Elizabeth, and northern Manchester. SML 173 comprises private and government holdings, of which approximately 70% is titled. Untitled lands are privately owned. Noranda holds 55% of the mining rights of the total land areas for and behalf of the Commissioner of Lands, and the remainder is privately held. And this is shown in the EIA report, in which it is illustrated in detail, and there's a comprehensive appendix which lists the land ownership or land tenure situation in the entire SML 173 area. Now, let me take you to a description of the originally proposed project. The proposed mining activities will be undertaken in 5-year cycles for 25 years based on approved 5-year mining plans. The project will provide bauxite feedstock to sustain Noranda's operations for the export market. The ore bodies and haul roads comprises 15% or 1,250 hectares of the 8,335 hectares of the original SML 173 area. Noranda's operations do not involve the processing of bauxite to alumina, nor the use of caustic soda. The rate of dry bauxite production may be as high as 6 million dry metric tons per year. This has the potential to earn about US $150 million per year for Jamaica, and it makes a critically important contribution to the Jamaican economy. Noranda operations provides about 400 direct jobs, 400 indirect contractor jobs, 2,500 indirect opportunities through contractor services, and temporary jobs for a total of 3,300 jobs. There will be increased opportunities for residents in the surrounding communities as the mining progresses. Now, what are the changes to the originally proposed project? The project comprises the alternative proposal, which is the modified SML 173, which removes the clawback area, which was assessed and evaluated in detail in section 10.4 of the EIA report and presented in the first mandatory public meeting on December 8, 2020. And let me just take you through what these changes are. Originally, the area consisted of some 8,335 hectares. It has now been reduced to 6,226 hectares, or by 25%. In other words, 2,109 hectares has been removed from SML 173. And of this, only 18% of the modified SML 173 will be mined, and this is grass-covered land. It does not contain forest or is it highly vegetated. Exclusions. All the forest reserves within SML 173 are prohibited from mining by law. All the forest reserves within the SML 173 area will be excluded from mining as was originally stated, and this is a major part of the clawback area. In addition, a section of the original SML 173 located in the northwest has been excluded from the modified SML 173 area, and this is the area in which intensive agricultural activities take place, and it is the area in which the townships or settlements of Sawyers and Level Bottom are located. So no mining will take place in this clawback area. Now, the modified SML 173 is now shown on the screen, and what it shows is the total clawback area which was previously mentioned. And it then shows the forest, and it shows the areas in which the township of Level Bottom and Sawyers are located, as well as the area remaining for the mining of bauxite. So, 25% of the original SML 173 has been removed or clawed back. No forestry reserves will be mined at all, and only 18% of the modified SML 173 will be mined, and this does not contain forest. What are the characteristics of the clawback area? The clawback area, which is removed from SML 173, has the following characteristics. It hosts the largest declared forest reserves in SML 173. There are grass-covered bauxite-bearing depressions which are not forested, but these will not be mined. The bauxite deposits in depressions between the hillocks will not be mined. Human settlements with residences made of reinforced concrete and modern materials are located in this area. The area is relatively underdeveloped and sparsely populated. However, it contains some modern physical infrastructure, such as roadways. There are mixed settlements, intensive agriculture, and grasslands on variable terrain. And there are several hillsides which have been cleared to facilitate agricultural activities, especially for obtaining yam sticks for farming. Now, what are these changes or impacts that will take place as a result of these changes or will not take place as a result of the changes? Firstly, the potential impacts on communities. In respect of the original SML 173, communities located northwest within SML 173 may be impacted if we were to proceed with mining in that area. This is now clawed back. Now that we have clawed back that area completely or removed it from SML 173 from mining, the likelihood that there will be any impact on communities located to the northwest within SML 173 will be minimal to non-existent. The potential impacts on agriculture. The livelihoods of yam and other farmers located to the northwest within SML 173 could have been impacted if we were going to maintain the original boundaries and areas of SML 173. However, because there is now a clawed back area, the likelihood that there will be any impact on the livelihoods of yam and other farmers located in the northwest areas will be minimal to non-existent. The proposed mitigation measures are as follows. The entire clawed back area is a mitigation decision and action in itself, and it is a major and substantial one because it means that substantial amounts of commercial grade bauxite will not be mined. 25% of the original SML 173 area will be removed or clawed back from SML 173. of the 75% of SML 173 remaining, only 18% will be mined. And as I stated previously, this is covered with grassland and it is not forested. The areas in which intensive farming takes place, not the western part of the original SML 173, have been excluded from the modified SML 173 and will not be impacted by mining activities. This is an avoidance of a potential impact on the livelihoods of the farmers. In the same vein, the Cloudback area, which contains valuable commercial grade bauxite resources, will not be mined. And I stressed, will not be mined. There will be no mining in any forest reserves. Mining is prohibited by law within the forest reserves. Now, since the last meeting, there were quite a number of questions and comments raised, and these were submitted to the National Environment and Planning Agency, and they in turn sent them to us, the consultants to Noranda on this project. So, a total of some 135 questions and concerns were raised and submitted by the public, various stakeholders, since December 8, 2020. The questions and comments, some as follow-up questions to earlier questions and repeats, in fact, were received over the course of several weeks and were reviewed and responded to by the consultants to the satisfaction of the regulators. The full complement of questions and comments and the responses or resolutions can be accessed at NEPA's website and the website of Conrad Douglas Associates Limited, as well as at all the various locations in the communities in around SML 173. And may I point out that the documents which were placed there from December 2020 have not been removed, and they are still in place for the review of anyone who would like to do so. And new documents in addition to the EIA has again been placed in those communities, and they will not be removed. Now, I can only, ladies and gentlemen, provide some of the responses given to the questions and comments that were raised at the time. Because being so large and numerous, voluminous, some 135 of them, we could never get through all of them tonight. So let me say from the outset that the questions and responses selected for this presentation are categorized under 5 main headings as follows. And these were guided by the National Environment and Planning Agency. They concern plants and animals, or flora and fauna, bauxite toxicity, water resources, forestry, and social and economic concerns. In addition, there were a few questions and comments relating to land reclamation and rehabilitation, which forms a very important final step in the process of rehabilitating or reclaiming the mined-out bauxite land. Conrad Douglas Associates will present a summary of some of the questions, the comments, and the responses given. The details of all 135 questions and comments, as well as the corresponding responses, are set out in the documents that have been placed in the public domain on the websites mentioned and the various locations within SML 173, as previously mentioned. But let us start with the plants and animals, or the flora and fauna. And I will just mention the questions, and then I will successively follow this up with some of the answers in the slide that followed. So, public comment from NEPA of January 5th, 2021. Question 30. What were the parameters and basis of the faunal survey? Question 33. The EIA detected some 46 birds survey for the same area. There are reports of some 86 species of birds from eBird, which is a website. how do you account for the difference of some 40 birds? Additional comments from Nepal of January 20th, 2021, question 29. The term adaptive insect, which is used, is unknown in entomology and should be clearly defined to avoid confusion. So here are some of the responses or answers. Public comment from Nepal, January 5th, 2021. Response. The 9 blocks surveyed in SML 173 covered all the land uses within the area, and more than 50% of the 8,335 hectares, or 2.5 times what is required by best practices, was done for the EIA. Response to question 33. eBird is not a scientific or audited tool and therefore should not be used as a reference in a highly scientific document such as an EIA. It is indicative only, and this is consistent with the disclaimer from eBird itself, which states the services and all material and information posted on it provided to you as is without any warranties. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reported faithfully and diligently on what we observed in the field. We are not saying that these other birds might not have been there, but when we did our various investigations in the field, we did not see them. I must also point out that it is quite possible to manipulate that eBird website because you can insert just about any species of bird that you wish to do so with the website. So we have included eBird and the disclaimer in the subsequent documents so that it can be clear to anybody who is reading it. Additional public comment from Nepal, January the 20th, 2021. Our response to this question 29, the term adaptive was meant as a simple adjective, referring to the ability to camouflage itself. That is what is meant, and not intended to be an adjectival noun. As you know, various species of animals can in fact camouflage themselves either to capture prey or to avoid predators. And that was the whole idea. And this is captured photographically and presented in the EIA report itself. The document is also for public consumption in general, and language was used in an attempt to be readily understood and appreciated by the public at large, and not only technical persons or scientists who would be engaged in the review of the document. And so this map gives an idea of the different blocks that were surveyed, and there were a total of 9 of them, which is in excess of the level of sampling by far required for the purpose of an EIA. And as we said, among other things, it covered all of the land uses in the area and covered all species of plants and animals that we observed in the area for plant kingdom, animal kingdom, and for all the major classes or phylum of animals and plants in the area. Bauxite toxicity was another question or concern raised. And the question was, or comment, why were no quantitative data and toxicity risk estimates presented for heavy metal concentrations in the bauxitic soils and fugitive dust? And the answer or response was, based on the history of bauxite mining throughout Jamaica and the scientific investigations carried out by reputable scientists, and we name some of them, such as the late Professor Gerald Laidler, Conrad Douglas, myself, and Chin et al., and accredited laboratories nationally and internationally, there is no evidence to support the assertion that workers or the public may be exposed to harmful levels of airborne heavy metals from the mining of bauxite. A continuation of this response states, the concentration in which toxic elements exist in bauxite is extremely small, to the order of parts per million or parts per billion. Furthermore, these elements are locked into stable crystal lattices of certain minerals, and they are not available for uptake by plants. To release these elements require drastic conditions of either acidity or alkalinity at elevated temperatures and pressures, which are not available in nature. The sum total of this, therefore, ladies and gentlemen, is that these elements have not entered the food chain, they have not been taken up by plants, and if these are in turn eaten by animals, they will not poison these creatures, and the morbidity or the demographics of Jamaica show that wherever bauxite occurs, and it occurs widely throughout the country, death has not been caused by any of these elements which we are referring to. Water resources was another matter of concern, and there were several questions that were asked, and this involved further consultations with the regulators, including the Water Resources Authority, and we resolved all of the issues that were raised. But to give you some of the questions and responses. Question 1, the depth to groundwater should not be used as a metric to minimize the risk of contamination of the karstified and significantly faulted aquifer. In the first instance, there are no contaminants or pollutants that are associated with the mining of bauxite. Question 12, the WRA reiterates its previous comment regarding the depth to groundwater as a non-determinant of how susceptible the aquifer is to contamination. The responses to these questions were as follows. In the respect of R1 to 12, it was agreed with the regulators, which is the Water Resources Authority in this instance, and Nepal, that there are no toxic or hazardous substances associated with the mining of bauxite, and the only potential pollutant could be bauxite soil particles, which could only temporarily increase the turbidity of the Rio Bueno. The answer continued to R1 and 9. That is responses to R1 and 9. On the commencement of mining, the turbidity of the Rio Bueno would be monitored in accordance with any condition of permit that the regulator might require the proponent to comply with. And it must also be recognized that Nepal, in issuing a permit or a license, always require that the holder or permittee develop what is known as an environmental management and monitoring plan as a condition. And whatever is stated in that environmental management and monitoring plan must be done by the person who holds the permit in order to maintain compliance with the law. Continuing on water resources, questions and comments. The retreat well is a stated example of pollution impacting groundwater in the region. Although it has not been determined what the source of that pollution was or is, the environmental impact assessment should mention and address this particular matter of the retreat well. After consultations, in which it was discussed at length and agreed with the regulators, it was agreed that there is no evidence that unknown pollutant mentioned by the Water Resources Authority resulted from or was contributed from bauxite mining, since bauxite mining has never been carried out in proximity to the retreat well. For this reason, it was agreed that there will be no further reference to contamination of the retreat well in respect of bauxite mining. Ladies and gentlemen, that well was dug many years ago in order to supply water to a housing development which was proposed but which did not take place. The well is so deep that it was abandoned because it was infeasible to pump water from that well to supply any development in or around the area. There are questions from the Forestry Department and, of course, some comments, and I take some of these and present them as follows. Question 1 here. Noranda must adhere to its commitment to reduce road width where possible and to actively implement dust suppression measures as outlined in the EIA. I just answered this from the beginning. The road width of Noranda's operation, and Mr. Dell will elaborate on this as necessary, has been cut in half from some 60 odd meters to 35 meters or less. Correct me, sir, if I need to. The surface of the haul road must be broken up to facilitate the spontaneous regeneration and active reforestation of roadways. And the answers or responses are as follows. The mined bauxite contains a fair degree of moisture and as such has a lower potential for fugitive dust formation, and it can be transported and stockpiled without wetting due to its physical and chemical characteristics. Notwithstanding, a dust suppression regime or irrigation or sprinkling system has been and will be maintained for all environmental, for dustfall and dustfall monitoring will be a feature of the environmental management program. This is standard practice that is carried out by Noranda. The response to the next question, with the exception of the haul roads that are authorized to remain open, agreement with the parish council would be necessary, as well as we would be following a recommendation that has been made by the Jamaican National Heritage Trust, because it has been proven that for the benefit of community development, at the end of the mining process, haul roads, some of them, are left unattended, otherwise to enable natural regrowth or revegetation with grass and other trees to take place. This was stated on section 5, page 63 of the EIA report. And at the end of use, access and use of the haul roads are reclaimed, totally reclaimed, destroyed. Hence, these haul roads are made redundant. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there were some questions concerning socio-economic and cultural matters as well. And some of these are as follows. These were received on the 5th of February, 2021. Question 1. No assessment was included in the EIA of the negative short-term immediate impact on the farming communities. The response to this question was that the data required for the socio-cultural and economic survey was captured through a pre-coded, pre-tested survey instrument or questionnaire, which was administered to an appropriate sample size. The socio-cultural and economic survey instrument, which is shown in Appendix 3 of the EIA report, was approved by Nepal before it was administered. Furthermore, the EIA report addresses issues such as compensation and identification of alternative lands for residents. In addition, there were 4 voluntary public consultation meetings, as is required by universally accepted best practices in doing EIA. And not only the first mandatory public meeting, nor this second mandatory public meeting. And furthermore, There were focus group consultations with key stakeholders and community leaders, and their concerns, recommendations, and the various issues that they wanted to be addressed were taken into account as the EIA was developed and implemented. Now, I must mention reclamation and rehabilitation only for the fact that Mr. Dell pointed out in his presentation that exploration is one of the first activities carried out in the process of developing bauxite resources, going through to the process of actually mining or winning the bauxite from the soil. But after that is done, reclamation and rehabilitation of the bauxite must be done in accordance with the law, and this must be completed within 3 years maximum after mining is completed. And I mention this to say that lands that have been rehabilitated have been done to such an extent that they provide the opportunity for a great variety of other uses, such as agriculture, the development of small factories, peanut factories. Various types of crops can be planted, corn, vegetables, etc. And in addition to that, amenities such as schools, play fields, and so on, as well as storage of water storage can be done. Most importantly, we should all remember that Jamaica boasts one of the finest breeds of tropicalized cattle in the entire world. Jamaica Brahmin, Jamaica Black, Jamaica Hope, Jamaica Red Pole, and these were all developed here locally by our own scientists, and we are internationally renowned for this. And the investment in the development of that cattle was done by none other than Alcan Jamaica Limited, including the development of feed for these cattle. And why we say this? After you have mined and after you have rehabilitated, you can continue these activities indefinitely. Thank you for your kind attention, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Dr. Douglas, for your presentation on the findings of the environmental impact assessment. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to start taking your questions and comments, but before we go to the first one on WhatsApp, I'd like to apologize for any offensive and inappropriate material to which you may have been subjected earlier in this broadcast. Thank you for your understanding and your patience. So you're now being invited to participate in the meeting through question and answers, as I said before, and by providing any comments that you may have. You're being reminded that questions and comments may be sent through the Zoom, TVJs, and JNN's YouTube pages, WhatsApp, which is 878-1356. Don't forget the 876 at the start, 878-1356, or you may call 876-733-246126. If you're at any of the satellite locations, you may ask your question or make a comment on the microphone provided. And if you're participating from any of the available platforms, I'm going to ask you to remember to state your name and the communities you represent or the organization to which you are affiliated. This will form part of the official records of the meeting. I'd like to thank our record keeper here today. I will share her name with you in just a little while. It's very important. Everything is being taken down word for word. So remember, though, keep your questions and your comments to about a minute or so as many people can get to participate as is possible. I think we're going to go to WhatsApp first and foremost, and this is, what is a plan that you have for retreat, Brownstown, St. Anne? Which of you wonderful people will take this? What is the plan you have for retreat, Brownstown, St. Anne? Mr. Dell?
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the question. Retreat is one of the areas we are currently mining, and it's one of the areas which we are planning to have greenhouses installed once mining operations ceases. That's one of the plans, the definitive plans.
How soon do you think that will be?
This will be, we have identified that in 2022 to 2023, we'll be building some additional greenhouses, and that's one of the areas which is targeted for greenhouse construction.
All right, just before we wrap this up, anything else you want to say to the people in Retreat Center, and anything else that will happen?
That is the main
That is the
activity we
main
are
thing.
targeting, yes.
The greenhouses.
It is a farming area, and we want to ensure that the farmers' livelihoods are maintained.
How will the farmer register for the greenhouses, for example?
Well, we have public relations officers, and those are the persons who will be interfaced with at the community level. And so farmers, persons who would possibly could have been displaced and who would need to find lands or find opportunities to continue farming, that is the person or persons, the community PR officer, who would be the contact for that.
All right, thank you. And now we're going over to Endeavour. Somebody in Endeavour has a question, so let us see if we can get to that person. Good evening. Trying to reach out to our friends in Endeavour, St. Anne. Good evening, can you hear? All right, I think we're having a little glitch there. But while we wait on that, perhaps I noticed you had quoted 136 greenhouses that already exist, and you were saying 80 more should come on stream, if you have been listening.
Yes.
And would the retreat greenhouse be part of the 80 to come on stream?
That's correct.
Yes, and this 40 million gallons of water storage. Explain how that works.
Right. Once we take the bauxite out of the ground, a hole is created. In some instances, we line the hole with an impermeable material, a material which the water will not soak through, and use that as a catchment. And then that water is used to provide water for the greenhouses and farming activities nearby.
Thank you, sir. I think we have something on Zoom. Now, here's a question. How will mining in SML 173 affect the coastal water discharge?
I will ask Mr. Fernandez to make a comment on that, Madam Moderator.
Mr. Fernandez?
Well, based on past mining areas, we have not seen any impact on coastal water discharges from the limestone aquifer, whether on the north coast or the south coast, that have negatively affected water quality. I don't expect that this will change because the change that people might say would expect is going to be turbidity or a discoloration of the water, and so we have never seen that. And though there has not been a formal study in terms of looking at the discharges and the impacts in terms of from the mining, some work has been done in Australia where studies have been carried out in bauxite mining areas and where there has been no difference and no impact on groundwater and water resources as a whole between areas that have been mined and areas that have been unmined but with trees removed, and they have concluded that the bauxite mining has not affected groundwater.
Thank you.
And I don't think that in Jamaica we have ever seen, and though there's been significant monitoring of water resources by the Water Resources Authority during my time at the Water Resources Authority, which still continues. And there are stations on Rio Bueno, there are stations on all the rivers along the north coast. And despite mining starting from way back in the 1960s, 50s, 60s, at Lidford and other places, we have not seen any impact because Lidford is directly upgradient of the Duns River Falls and the Cave River. The Cave River now supplies Ocho Rios with water. It's the Bogue treatment plant for the NWC. It's the source of water. Goes into St. Mary as well as Ocho Rios. And we have never seen, and we do have 2 gauges on the Bogue River. The Water Resources Authority does have 2 gauges on the Bogue River. And we have not seen any contamination impacting the discharges from the aquifer in any of those areas.
Thank you, Mr. Basil Fernandez, and we know of his experience in this area. We want to try for Endeavour again. We want to go to the people who are out in the communities and they want to pose their questions or make their comments. So, St. Anne, over in Endeavour, are you there? Can you hear us? Do you have a question or a comment? Aha.
Good afternoon, I'm Mr. Hamilton, representative from Madras. I have noted question and a proposal, but the question I want to ask, why can't, when I look through the brochure that Noranda Bauxite sent out with the reclaiming of this land that they are already mined, why can't all the land be reclaimed just like some of what I've seen in the brochure? Some of them, some of the places that have been reclaimed, they just barely a little dirt over them, and nothing can grow there.
All right, just a
Why
moment,
can't-
sir. Just a moment. Let us try and get an answer for you, because remember, trying to keep the question or the comment to a minute or so. Look here, now you say just a little dirt over, I sit now, nothing can grow there. So what you have to say, Mr. Dell?
All right, I think that's unfortunate. The standard for reclamation, the expectation is that, this is the government's regulations, that you should have 5.5 inches or more. We reclaim to 12 to 18 inches. That's what we put on the soil, on the ground, which has been reshaped. So we actually reclaim to a higher standard than stipulated by law. Right? I think part of the perception in regards to what has happened with reclamation is that the reclamation standards over the years has actually changed. So prior about 20 years ago, the reclamation standard actually allowed pits to be reclaimed with fairly sharp sides. With the change in the standard, the land has to be reshaped. So you may have a slightly larger area within which you have to spread the topsoil, which was removed during the initial storing of topsoil before mining activities.
So would that affect the depth of the topsoil?
It would affect, but we are still very much in compliant and in excess of what is required by law.
All right.
In addition,
Yes, let me go to, this is another person who is here to speak with us, Mrs. Sharita Nelson. Did I do that right?
that's correct.
That's right.
In addition, though, I would like to add to Delroy Dell's statement is that during the reclamation and rehabilitation process is that we have several different types of activity that we do in this process. Earlier, it was highlighted that sometimes we reclaim the land by revegetation, or what we say, plant the land back up with plants. But also, sometime in this process, we turn it over to schools for play field, we turn it over for agricultural purposes, and we also use some of our mined out pits for water harvesting, which is critical in the water conservation measures, where we use these rainwater harvest pits to wet our roads, so we actually maintain water conservation. So there are several aspects in the reclamation and rehabilitation process.
And Mrs. Nelson is Environment, Health and Safety Manager at Noranda Jamaica Bauxite Partners 2, all right? Am I to stay in Endeavour or am I to go to Zoom? I'm seeing Endeavour here. Endeavour, we're staying with you. I endeavour to stay with you, Endeavour. Sir?
Yes, my name is
Go ahead.
Broderick Miller from Gibraltar. I just want to say a pleasant good afternoon to you.
Hold on there, hold on a little bit. Technical. We have to sort that out. Him sound like he drop down in a one barrel. All right? So we have to sort. Just a moment, so we're trying to accommodate you, but the audio, the sound is really not very clear. So just hold it for me. Let me go to the Zoom and see if you can work out the technical thing there from the gentleman from Gibraltar. What about, listen to me now, dust nuisance is what this one is about. What about dust impacts on humans, flora and fauna? Dr. Douglas?
Yes, thank you, Madam Moderator. This has always been an issue with which residents are concerned, anywhere at all in the country, not only with bauxite mining alone. However, let me point out that in doing this environmental impact assessment, we took this into careful consideration to the extent that we did what is known as modeling to determine what would be the potential for the formation and dispersal of dust throughout the entire area, and what would it be in respect of compliance for the different standards for the total suspended dust particle in the atmosphere, as well as particles of size or diameter of 10 microns or PM10. And what the model showed is that it was substantially, significantly in compliance with those air quality standards. In addition to that, NEPA asked us that we do baseline measurements in the area, and so we had to put out several instruments, high volume samplers and microvol samplers at different points, which would form the so-called receptors.
So the science was done?
Yes, where the science was done. And these receptors are the humans possibility, plant possibility, and also the fauna or animals. And so what we found again was that we would be in full compliance with this. But in addition to that, let me say that in recognition of the fact that dust can in fact be problematic, in fact it is regarded as a nuisance in many instances, the company has always developed what is known as a dust suppression regime. And this is a part of what the water harvested and stored is used to do, the millions of gallons. And so you have sprinkler trucks that go on the oil road and wet all the exposed surfaces throughout the course of the day. And the intensity with which they wet these surfaces is variable. For example, if rain is falling, there's no need to really wet the surface. But if it is hot, if it is dry and windy, not only do you wet it once daily, but several times per day as the situation demands to protect the people and any other asset or resource in the area.
Thank you.
If I may add?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Dell.
In order to improve our dust mitigation and road wetting regime, we have actually added a new 15 million gallon water storage facility, which is dedicated only for road wetting and dust mitigation activities. For all these years, all of our water which we use to wet the roads has to be pulled from Discovery Bay. We have developed and have commissioned into service over the last month or two a brand new facility so that there can't be any difficulties with getting water to wet the roads.
So where is the facility located?
It's located at a location called Beltier, about a mile or so up from our Water Valley location.
It's good to know that. We're trying, but with, sorry, you did want to say something, Mrs. Nelson.
Thank you.
Just, then Deborah, I'll coming back to you right after this.
Thank you, Ms. Fay, Madam Chairperson. But in addition to Delroy Dell's point is that we are guided by what we call our air quality license that is issued, and this license really conditions general and specific to our operation. And what we continue to do, we're in this business over 55 years, and we consider to be responsible miners. We are responsible corporate citizens, and what we tend to do, we have environmental monitoring management plans that we put in place, that we have dust stations, dust monitoring stations within our operation in communities, and what we do, we monitor ambient air quality. And I can tell you that we are compliant in our dust mitigation measures, and we continue to improve, and we continue to partner with the communities, because in this business we want to ensure that we are environmentally friendly, we are environmentally responsible, and we want to ensure that we reduce our footprint and be good corporate company or citizen. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for that. Endeavour, sir, I hope it's sorted out and we can hear you clearly now. We're coming back to you. This is gentleman from Gibraltar.
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead, sir, try.
Yes, my name is Broderick Miller from Gibraltar.
Yes?
I just want to say this. COVID has done a lot in terms of separating and causing our economy to fall. Now, with SML 173 and the mining operation from what is going on, if NEPA does not give the approval and sign the lease, what would happen? The government has 51%. The company has 49%. What would happen if this bauxite company would come to an halt? What would we do? Not just only in Gibraltar, but in the country at large, because tourism falls and is coming back. So if we don't get the mining to go ahead, what would the government and Noranda would do? Give us an answer, please.
Madam Moderator, I think Mr. Dell could answer that far better than I could, but from what we all know, every one of us as Jamaicans have been saying for the longest time that we need to diversify the Jamaican economy and that we should not depend on any single sector alone. We have seen where bauxite itself, alumina, was the #1 performer in the Jamaican economy for many years. And then it was overtaken by tourism, and that has grown and increased the diversity. We have seen where agriculture held pride of place, and that has now declined and is no longer making the same level of contribution as it used to in the past. We recognize the potential for it to recover and again contribute in the future. But the long and short of this is that while tourism has been seriously impacted by COVID-19, which is now coming up to 2 years since it has been with us.
And no end in sight just yet.
No ready end in sight, and if you've been following what's going on globally,
Europe has been having serious problems reported in the last 4 or 5 days.
And North America as well, Madam Chair. So let me just say that during this time, the bauxite alumina industry has been one that has been performing outstandingly and continue to support the economy substantially. And if we did not have it, we would simply decline further and further to negative growth as we have been experiencing because of the impact of this COVID-19. And let me say, bauxite is an export commodity. It earns foreign exchange for the country. It is valuable and has been stated variously. The applications to the government budget, recurrent and capital, is enormous. And we need it to sustain the economy and our people. So the gentleman's question is critically important. Besides, he spoke about the jobs, the employment opportunities. And Mr. Dell spoke about the tremendous contribution, over 3,000 odd jobs. All of these through PAYE and the various other statutory deductions make a tremendous contribution. But I'll leave it and ask
Mr. Dell, you want to add to this? We have another question
I think his concerns are very well founded, and maybe that's why we are here today. Without SML 173, our operations will shut down, and it will create a huge deficit, both in the parish and nationally. All right?
So we're talking about people losing jobs.
Yes, this is without SML 173, we won't have a facility.
Oh, thank you for that. From YouTube, what shall we do when we mine, listen up now friends, what shall we do when we mine all the soil, disturb habitats for species that are vital to our existence and our children's children?
That is, Madam Chairman, an excellent question. It is an excellent question, and the company is more than aware and cognizant of this. And that is why they say they are becoming increasingly greener and greener in their approach. This is why reclamation and rehabilitation is so important, because you cannot just simply mine or extract bauxite and leave it alone. You must reclaim, as was pointed out by Mrs. Nelson, and you must rehabilitate. And you must ensure that you have activities which can be sustained almost in perpetuity after you have done your mining. so that you can have your cattle rearing. You know, whether it's beef, whether it's dairy, and you can have your agricultural activities, and you can have all the amenities and facilities that you need for education. In respect of habitats, which is a critically important point, we have stressed during the course of the presentation that 18% of the total modified SML 173 will be disturbed, and that is not forested area, which hosts the greatest and highest level of biodiversity. It is mainly grassland. And what we have found from the various practices over the years is that when you rehabilitate using best methods and practices, you create a situation in which you have a better performance of the grass cover and the diversity than what you had before. So the biomass is greater and the diversity of animals which existed there is greater.
All right.
And its contribution is even greater than before. So yes, there are some short-term things, impacts, but if you manage this very well, then you can get benefits which even superseded what existed before you did.
Thanks, Dr. Douglas. We want to go to Ulcer Spring now. They're waiting patiently. So let's head over to Ulcer Spring. You have a question over there? Yes, I'm seeing a gentleman. Please go ahead, sir, and thank you for joining, and thanks for your patience.
On the Environmental Agency. Let me use my 60 seconds quickly by saying to Delroy, and Conrad Douglas, and the lady beside you, Delroy, you've really done a very good job, and I think wherever Mr. Mark Hansen, the new owner of and CEO of Concord Resources, is sitting tonight, he would be very impressed with you, especially with the backdrop that's behind it, to literally give Noranda and the Noranda Jamaica Bauxite partners to a push. Let me go to Basil Fernandez, because Basil, as a retired person, you would maybe have not recognized from reading the EIA that this particular iteration of it has left out maps of water resources and dyes that show where the water going to Dornoch Head comes from. And I think I would want to refer you to that and ask Conrad, why was it left off of this iteration and you put fault lines in place of that map which
Mr.
shows
Morgan?
water flow?
Let me see if I can get an answer for you. Who's that, Mr. Dixon? Oh, Mr. Dixon.
Yeah.
Ah, yes, of
Let me go
course.
back to the response you gave a while ago, though, Conrad, and the lady in white.
All right, Mr.
The fact is that when you remove soil from a pit,
Mr. Dixon, just can you hold a moment so we can, please ask the producer on location to just tell him to hold a moment so that we can address the question. Could you just do that? Please ask the producer on location to ask him to hold a moment so the question can be addressed. Mr. Fernandez?
Before Mr. Fernandez, though, Mr. Dixon,
Go ahead.
are you hearing?
Yes, go ahead.
It's good to see you again, and it is good that we continue to engage in this dialogue. We have been doing this with you from the very outset. As you know, we have visited you and other stakeholders in your communities, and we have sat and spoken with you. Firstly, let me point out that the groundwater flows which were requested by the Water Resources Authority have in fact been placed on the map. I do not know which map you're looking at, but this was requested and it has in fact been done. So I will just hand over to Mr. Fernandez to answer the rest of the question. Because as I said from the very outset, we were requested to and engage in extensive and exhaustive discussions with the Water Resources Authority in order to resolve yes, a number of questions. Mr. Fernandez.
In fact, the original dye tracing exercise that was carried out by Smith and Smart from Bristol University in the 1970s proved the connection between certain rivers in the southern part of the Senton Mountains to the Rio Bueno. The work done by the Water Resources Authority, which basically was a continuation of programs that I had started before I left WRA, and which I had 2 people trained in dye tracing exercise, was carried out, but the report was only an internal report. It was not released to the public. And in fact, we were unaware that that work was carried out by the Water Resources Authority. That report was subsequently released, and the map was included inside of the reports. And in fact, there is a separate report that sets out all of this right now. And we are aware of where the water comes from and the direct linkage between Cave River and other rivers, Low River and stuff, in terms of the Rio Bueno. One thing is clear is that we don't know the passage it takes, but there is a link between both. Whether it goes a circuitous route or it goes directly, you don't know, because conduits that carry the water underground are not straight, are not continuous, and we don't know the path that it goes. We don't know whether it goes to the west of, to the left, to the right, or straight through the center of the SML. We don't know. So we know that there's a link between both, and that link has been established from the 1970s and reconfirmed by WRA in the work that they did in 2020 or 2019.
Thank you, sir. I think we're heading back to Alta Spring. There is another question from the persons who are gathered there.
I work for from Alta Spring as a farmer. What I want to know is that since we are the people of the cockpit country, does we have a right that we can choose whether the mining took place, yes or no? Since as we will be the people, that it will have a negative impact on us for generations to come. 125 years, more than 25. Okay.
All right, who's going to take that? Yeah, the question really is, do the people have a right to make their decision, to contribute their decision, which is why one of the reasons why we're having this meeting.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. Right.
Yes, go ahead.
So, thanks, Madam Moderator. Sir, your question is one that must be raised from time to time. This is why we have these stakeholder consultations. And this is why I mentioned on the outset that we had 4 voluntary stakeholder consultations. And we also had several focus group consultations in which we came and met with special stakeholders such as Mr. Dixon, such as JET, and several others throughout the entire process. What we said at the very outset, and I want to stress this, is that the inputs that you make in the process are invaluable, they are important. And this is universal best practice, and they must be taken into account. And this is what we have been doing throughout the entire process. So we are not ignoring you or sidestepping anything that you have said. But let me just stress as well, at the very beginning, and this is documented in the greatest detail diligently in all of the documents, beginning with the executive summary of the main and final EIA report, that there is a cockpit country designated protected area, or CCPA, which was tabled in the Houses of Parliament by the Most Honorable Prime Minister Andrew Holness in 2017. Absolutely no mining of bauxite will take place in that core cockpit country area. And in addition to that, there will be no cutting of trees for yam sticks in that area. And furthermore, the Prime Minister's statement said there will be no cutting of trees for the burning of charcoal in that area and other such things. Now, we spoke about the modification to SML 173, which is in fact the subject of this evening's meeting and the reason for the second mandatory meeting. And we said that even with those things in consideration, the area has been reduced, SML 173, or clawed back by 25%, or more than some 2,000 hectares, which contains bauxite resources that are of commercial importance, but it will be left unmined. in consideration of the need for conservation as we progress. And the 75% that remains, of that, only 18% will be disturbed for mining, and there are no forested reserves at all. That is on that 18%.
Thank you.
So this is the way that we are dealing with this so diligently. We recognize the sensitivity and we recognize the complexity of what is involved, and we must do this professionally, present it to the public, and report back to the National Environment and Plan Agency. And we have to do this again within 7 days after this meeting has been completed. And you will still have an additional 10 days after this meeting to submit questions to the National Environment and Planning
now is a
Agency.
good time for me to say that the lady who is taking everything that is being said down verbatim is Mrs. Winifred Manahan. I want to thank you for your patience and your professional services, madam. All right, we're going to a WhatsApp question from Audie Morgan, president of Cockpit Country Warriors. Since Noranda has been in operation for over 50 years and have done so much good in its mining areas, why haven't we seen any better standards of living in St. Anne and St. Catherine? Mr. Dell?
Our mining operations is only one piece of several economic activity which occurs in St. Anne. And I think just for clarity, we really do not operate in St. Catherine, right? But it is one of several pieces, and I think the point has been made more than once in this presentation that economic resilience for Jamaica, for St. Anne, depends on us having more than a single industry on which we can depend, right? So, if mining is the only activity in St. Anne, chances are you need other activities to ensure that the bulk of the residents in the parish can have a higher standard of living. Bauxite mining is just one of several activities which possibly need to be either expanded or maintained to ensure that the economy, the people of the parish do well. It can't be that because we say we have done good, that everybody will ultimately be impacted by the proceeds or the bauxite industry and our activities in St. Anne.
Thank you. We are extending the broadcast. We should have been closing off at round about now, 7:15, but because of the challenges we experienced earlier on, we're going on till 7:30. Thank you, everyone on the panel, for your understanding. We are going back to Ulster Spring now to see if we can have another person join us with their question or comment. Good evening over in Ulster Spring.
Quick question for you, Conrad and Deborah. The remaining deposits of bauxite in Jamaica are pretty much in around Cockpit Country, and there's about 30 years of bauxite deposits left. It's exhaustible. What is going to be the state of the economy when you've mined it? And we think you can't mine all of it because of issues of accessibility. So that's one question. What is the exit strategy, and what is the economic options that you will destroy in the process? Tourism as one, water as the other, and the value-added potential for yam on those places, Conrad, that you call grasslands. They are, in fact, bottomlands of critical fertility for agricultural production that has sustainability beyond the 30 years of bauxite mining. I want you to be honest this time and give me an answer to that.
It's an excellent question, as usual, Mr. Dixon. And this is why, in preparing this environmental impact assessment report, we have stated from the outset, and this is carefully documented in the executive summary and elsewhere throughout the whole document, that we are dealing with a finite or non-renewable resource, which is bauxite. If we continue to mine it, it must be exhausted or end at some point in the future. On the other hand, we have renewable resources, which are our plants and animals, as we have stated in the report as well. And these genetically can reproduce themselves in perpetuity and perform the various services, natural services that they do. Now let me get back to this finite resource. It is more than 30 years. It is not in or near the cockpit country alone. The cockpit country has been excluded. Maybe, Mr. Dixon, you are not aware of it, but bauxite is also found in Portland. And I'm not saying that you'd mine bauxite in Portland, but it is there. Bauxite is found in St. Andrew, and good quality bauxite, and St. Catherine. And the early days of exploration, which was carried out by the Harvey Company, showed this and demonstrated this. But it is still finite wherever it is found. And so, what was the strategy that was developed by the governments of Jamaica over the many years? The governments of Jamaica, for as long as I can recall, have always sought to build a capital development fund, or CDF, from the proceeds primarily of bauxite. And the objective was to use those resources to diversify the economy by setting up a number of agricultural activities and light manufacturing activities that could go on long in perpetuity after the bauxite resource has been mined. I don't want to say more beyond that because it might get me into politics. But a lot of that money was used in the recurrent budgets from year to year and was not applied in capital projects as was originally intended. So that's the best answer I can give you now. I think that there will be a different approach in using these funds in going forward to expand and grow the economy so that when bauxite is exhausted, we will still have sustainable sources of income from both exports and to perform import substitution in the domestic economy. I should point out, though, in leaving the question, now one of the things that rehabilitated bauxite mining has done is to enhance the food security of the nation through the various agricultural activities, and that is irrefutable. And you and I can discuss that separately at another time when you have time and so on. And as you know, you and I can always get together by phone or meet and discuss these matters.
I think we're going to hear from Mrs. Donna Howe, Managing Director, Jamaica Bauxite Mining Limited. She wants to have an input.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. An extension to that question, as the 51% government entity and interest in this and under the new holdings, it's in our interest to work with Noranda to initiate more projects, community projects, and there to be more interest of their spending in projects and community projects and making awareness for the holistic nation and the development of St. Anne's, the parish. So we'll continue those endeavours and we'll support Noranda in that initiative to do that.
Thank you. Could I ask you, Dr. Douglas, you mentioned something about haul roads in your presentation, and that after you've come out and you've completed, they go back into vegetation, grass and all of that. What if a community said to you, but you can't just fix up one of the road so we can move easily through from one community to the other? But maybe I should ask Mr. Dell.
No, it's an excellent question, Madam Moderator, and you can ask Mr. Dell, who knows even more about that than I do.
Well, actually, that was covered in Conrad's presentation.
Yes.
Yeah, but I want you to expand on it.
In the EIA study,
Jamaica National Heritage
it was the
Trust.
Jamaica National Heritage Trust actually had that as a recommendation.
Yes.
Right? That in the cases where a road could be of strategic value to a community or communities, that they would want to maybe make some representation.
The community would make the representation.
Right? To allow some of those roads to survive, right? So they are not reclaimed, so that they can be a benefit for the public.
That's right.
But importantly as well, it's something which has to be discussed and some guidelines developed under the circumstances in which you do this. because has been believed that just having a whole-scale attitude to leaving roads unreclaimed, that you actually allow more activities in these areas and allow things such as degradation due to yam stick reaping and other activities which can impact the landscape and impact the communities negatively. So it's something which would need discussion and guidelines developed as to when and where you would take that specific approach.
All right, I want to take a question from Ulster Spring. We have just 7 minutes left. Ulster Spring? Can we go into, them sound as if they're having quite a meeting down there. Could you bring up Ulster Spring for us, please?
Yes, Dane Lynch is the name.
Could you say the name again for us?
2 hours listening to this very Dane Lynch is the name, and I've been sitting. Where are you from? I'm from Dalton. Where are you from?
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead. Time is going.
Dane Lynch is the name, and I'm here. I've been sitting here for the past 2 hours, and I've been listening to this very intriguing conversation. But I've been greeted with tensions in the room from people with various agendas I don't know. Right? But my only concern was basically if mining was going to be done in the cockpit country, and based on what I've heard here, it is quite frank that no such thing will be happening.
It's a lie.
Hold on.
It's a lie.
Allow him to speak. Allow him to speak.
Listen.
Wait until you get your turn at the mic.
It's being done in the capital country as we speak.
Mr.
So if you don't understand,
producer at location, we will listen to the lady, but she can't hijack the gentleman's opportunity. Producers there, I know it's a very emotional topic, I know it, but we can't allow her to hijack what the gentleman is saying. Please tell her that I'm willing to come to her after this. Just allow, I think his name is Mr. Lynch. Would you like to address that?
Yes, I think the gentleman is quite perceptive. The government has declared a cockpit country protected area, and the government is the duly constituted authority of the land. SML 173 is not within the CCPA or cockpit country protected area.
Let me ask.
And we are not conducting any operations there presently, nor do we intend to have any operations in the CCPA once or if we were to be granted the environmental permits. SML 173 is outside of the CCPA.
Also, Spring, could you get that lady who wanted to speak, but tell her, do not shout too loud, my head can't manage it, right? Just ask the lady, because we want to give everybody an opportunity. Let me hear what she has to say. Just ask her to come to the microphone, please. She not there, but she was there just now. Come on, come to the microphone, my sister. Come to the microphone. I want to hear what you have to say. Bring her up for me. Bring up the picture, please. Wait.
The surrounding communities. Come out here, so you not come from here. You not come from Trelawny. And at that, me say, come out here and Trelawny you not come from. I'm serious about it. Let me talk.
Sir, ma'am, you have a minute because we have to close off at 7:30.
Him not come from here.
Producer on location. All right, good. Well, I'm sorry. I really wanted to hear what she has to say because we have to be able to allow everyone with a perspective and understanding. But when you get the opportunity, then we're going to quarrel and fight. It's not going to work. It is not going to, but hello, it's a very emotional something, this, you know.
Of course.
Very emotional. Mr. Fernandez, you look as if you wanted to say a quick, we give you 30 seconds.
I just heard Mr. Dixon say something about after destruction of water. Bauxite has been mined in Jamaica since 1950s, primarily a lot on the south coast of Jamaica. And we have one of the largest wells producing water located on the south coast of Jamaica. There's been no destruction of water. And the Water Resources Authority at my time, we did upgrade our master plan. And it shows that there is quite a bit of water that is still available. And we have not seen any destruction of any water. Rivers continue to flow. The groundwater continues to provide sources to wells that meets the demand for towns like Mandeville and Maypen, and irrigation systems across the south coast of Clarendon and St. Catherine. So I don't think that there's going to be any destruction of water caused by the mining, which has not been caused by mining on the south coast of Jamaica. There's no reason for it to happen on the north coast of Jamaica.
Thank you, Mr. Fernandez. I have a minute and a half, and let me just read this quickly. Have there been any studies to show the biodiversity, ecosystem function, and services of rehabilitated pits in Jamaica? Any studies?
Yes, Madam Moderator. There has been some studies, but there is scope for more studies. And let me admit this from the outset. So what we have been doing of late is to use what takes place on rehabilitated lands and compare it with those areas that have been mined and not yet fully rehabilitated. And what we have found is that in the case of the rehabilitated lands, as I mentioned earlier on, the performance in terms of biodiversity is better. The amount of coverage of plants and the functions that they naturally perform, such as air cleansing, etc., and photosynthesis, etc., in the hydrological cycle and so on, soil nutrients and so forth, has been greater from what we have made from the preliminary observations. And furthermore, the number of habitats have been increased, the biomass has been increased, and the diversity of animals in the rehabilitated area has also been increased. But, as I said, and it's important, it's an area in which
more study needs to be done.
Yes.
Mrs. Nelson, Mrs. Sharida Nelson.
Thank you very much. In addition to Dr. Douglas' point, we need to also highlight the fact that part of the Noranda's environmental management monitoring program is that we have what we call relocation and removal of sensitive species. So before we start any mining activity, before we start to clear any land, we go in and we develop a training and we train individuals and we remove or relocate sensitive species, and we have what we call a plant nursery. So in the rehabilitation process, we tend to relocate those species back into the environment, and that is very important to note. But also, in addition, is that our port in Discovery Bay is actually located in what we call a fish sanctuary, and that is the Discovery Bay Fish Sanctuary. And to be very honest, is that the University of the West Indies Marine Lab is also located in close proximity to our port, and they conduct what you call routine water quality monitoring. And their results, which is also in the public domain, you can also go and read that as well, is that the water quality within our port location is very good and within standard. And in addition, we have also had what we call an artificial reef within that location, which is doing quite well. We actually turn it over to the Discovery Bay Marine Lab, where we actually see the number of fish species, various species, actually increase within that fish sanctuary. And that is to tell us about the environmental sustainability and partnership with even the Marine Lab that we carry out throughout our number of, what I would say, community and environmental initiative with the company and the mining operations.
Thank you, Mrs. Nelson. I've been given 3 more minutes here because now 7:32, we have to finish at 7:35. Retreat. I'm told that I must come over to you and I should not retreat. Yes, go ahead, please.
Good evening, Dr. Ellington and members of the panel. I am Noranda Thompson. I am a resident in Alexandria, Southwest St. Anne, and I'm also the PMP councillor candidate. I'm here in retreat. Now, Dr. Douglas, I realize, spoke about haul roads. But my question is, haul road trucks, what suggestion or recommendation does he have for those trucks? Because they keep on using the public road, which adds to the nuisance of dust and also the damaging of the roads. So what suggestion or recommendation he has for that in order to help us with the poor road condition which the haul truck are adding
All
to
right.
this
Let me have them
problem
answer,
in
Ms. Norda.
my division where the mining is clearly, he would be familiar with Alexandra.
All right.
And I also have a recommendation.
Yes?
Can members of the Noranda team help us with portable water since we have that major problem of dust nuisance, especially where the mining area is in Water Valley, where I reside, Alexandria.
All right. Let me get some answers for you. Take the last one first. Can you help with portable water?
Yeah, we do help with portable water. Contact can be made with our PR team, our group in the mines, and we do have contractors who the only thing they do is to take water, portable water, to community members, institutions such as schools, hospital.
So this is a Water Valley community I think she's speaking about.
Yes.
So you're going
that
to...
is where it is hauled from.
Yeah, so
right?
Mrs. Nelson, make a note of that.
Right, so help is available.
Yes.
For distribution of water.
No, they truck them on the main road now.
Well, I am very disappointed to hear that that's happening. That's not supposed to happen. What we have done is that increasingly, not all of the truck fleet, because we are not involved in all of our mining activities is currently outsourced. And the trucks, we have no trucks which belong to us anymore. What we have increasingly been doing is require that the trucks are stationed at specific locations, truck yards, and they are not fitted with registration plates to allow them to drive on the public roads. I would like to implore Miss Nordia,
yes,
that if she sees that happening, it needs to be reported to us so that action
You
can
have a
be
number you
taken.
can share right now?
Yes.
You share a telephone number so it's easy access for how them can reach you. The office number.
973-22.
Just go ahead.
973 2223.
So that's 973-2223. So Ms. Nadia, they are asking for your assistance. If you ever see this, you are to get in touch with them because what I'm hearing them say is that it shouldn't be happening.
No.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us this evening for this subsequent mixed virtual public meeting. And you're being reminded that while the time may not have allowed for all the questions to be posed or answers in this live meeting given, all questions and comments received have been recorded. Once again, Mrs. Winifred Manahan, thank you so much. And we are going to record from all media platforms, and everything will be addressed and included in the verbatim records, which is what is happening here of this meeting, which must be submitted to NEPA within 7 days of this meeting. Further, you are allowed an additional 10 days to submit questions. So in addition to you can take 10 days. Within 10 days to submit your questions to the National Environment Planning Agency via electronic media, their email applications@nepa.gov.jm, applications@nepa.gov.jm, or you take the letter or send it to 10 Caledonia Avenue, Kingston 5, right? All questions received will be submitted to the environmental consultant, and responses must be provided by them and submitted to the National Environment and Planning Agency. Remember that the final environmental impact assessment report and its companion documents may be accessed at the following locations: National Environment and Planning Agency's Documentation Center at 11 Caledonia Avenue, Kingston 5. In St. Anne, Gibraltar All-Age Infant School, Madras Primary School, Discovery Bay Police Station. In Trelawny, Also Spring Police Station, Alberton Police Station, and Sawyer's Post Office. Or electronically, you can go to the NEPA website. That is www.nepa.gov.jm. You can also get them from Conrad Douglas Associates Limited website, which is www.cdaestech.com. Again, I want to thank you, and if you'll allow me once more to apologize for any offensive and inappropriate material to which you may have been exposed in the earlier stages of this public meeting. Thank you so very much for your participation, and remember, COVID still a keep, so please observe the protocols. Have a good night. Walk good. To the team here, thank you.
JNN and Power 106 has just presented a live broadcast from Conrad Douglas Associates Limited Public Town Hall for the subsequent second mandatory public meeting on the final environmental impact assessment for the proposed bauxite mining operations by Noranda Jamaica Bauxite Partners 2 in the Special Mining Lease 173 SML 173 area located in the parishes of St. Anne and Trelawny.